Well, the good news just kept rolling in, so I decided to go ahead and do a Good News Friday show after all. If you've already seen my other episodes today, I'll put cards up. Oh, I'm sorry, if you haven't, later on, I'll put the cards up for those. They're extremely important to the future of Tesla and our investments in Tesla. So I'm going to give you a quick summary, but you may want to go back and look at the details. We started out the morning with Tesla down a bit, and the market's going up quite nicely. My read in this morning's video after the bell was that the market was way more interested, at least today, in the continued strength of the economy. And so they weren't so interested in rate cuts happening now, happening later. They weren't quite as involved with that and much more interested that the jobs report was good, but not crazy. Well, there were plenty of articles that back up my position that I took on the morning show, including the fact that there are headwinds that could quickly turn this really good economy into not so good. Chief among those, oil, gold, commodity prices, gasoline, all those are headed higher. Labor inflation still showing up too hot. Fast food chains in California raising their prices for just a quick meal to like $15 or more, as California gives most fast food workers a guaranteed wage of $20 an hour. Such folly. So if inflation stays between 3 and 4%, and if GDP increases stay between 1 and 3%, and if unemployment stays around 4%, the market will probably continue along in its merry way and continue up. But as you can see, a little bit of a break in any one of those, and we can start to have some significant problems. Well, that was followed by the big Reuters lie, or maybe just getting it partly wrong. Based on the later news, I'm sticking with my analysis that I made in the second show this morning. Tesla will make they will make the Model 3, Model 2, Gen 3, whatever you want to call it, the $25,000 car. They will make that car in Austin, and they will make it in Berlin, and then they will make it in Mexico, and they will eventually make it in India. But Reuters might have had it right that they won't make that consumer version in Shanghai or anywhere else in China for that much. They won't make it anywhere in China because there's just too much competition in China for that kind of car. And why do you want to spend your time and your energy and going to for such a low priced and low margin vehicle where you're going to be competing all the time? They won't have that kind of competition in Europe or the Americas compared to what they would have in China. So, but they will make the Robotaxi car in China because they'll be basically all by themselves in that type of car, even though, yes, there's other cars in China that have some evidences of capabilities in autonomy, but nothing on the order of what FSD is going to do. Well, we'll see how that turns out. We'll see whether I'm right about that. I don't know. I'm just adding up. Again, take a look at the whole video where I will take you through the process of how I thought it through, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. Of course, Elon said they were lying, and I think he's correct. They implied that the entire Model 2 program was dead everywhere on the planet. And by the way, as of my last pass through various resources that I used to find the news, the story of Tesla giving up on the $25 car is still everywhere you look. So people, I tell you, the press, you just can't trust them. Well, within a couple of hours after that, we had the biggest story of the day by a lot, maybe the biggest story of the year for Tesla, maybe the biggest story of the year for the entire world. We had the fact that Elon said that the Robotaxi is going to unveil on August 8th. Now, a quick summary of my position on that. I believe unveil, which could mean a lot of things, will either mean a nationwide deal with Uber to turn the current Tesla fleet in their network into robotaxis and then add owners like you and me to their fleet, or it'll be some kind of a regional rollout based on regulations in various cities and states and countries. But it will be a huge deal. And this story is beginning to show up. You actually can see it here and there in the news. But of course, just as important as Robotaxi, this basically means FSD is done. Elon and other Tesla drivers are driving around in cars that are ready to go right now as robotaxis, but they just want to test them more and more and more. And they've picked August 8. And why did they pick August 8? Well, it turns out that August 8, that 8, it's a Chinese, it's a number that in Chinese is a sign of good luck and goodwill. Anyway, just as important, I'm sorry, but this also means that other OEMs will absolutely start making the call. Boardrooms across the world right now, you have CEOs and CFOs and board chair and founders all talking to one another and trying to figure out what are they going to do, because they're thinking exactly the same way that you and I are, which is that FSD is ready. It's ready to go. And there are cars driving around right now where it's way better than a human. Well, and then we had this, and I want to go ahead and share my screen to show you this real quick. So Sawyer Merritt says, hey, take a look. Ever since we've given the folks that 30-day opportunity, the number of miles is almost going vertical here on this chart. It was already going pretty strong here over the last 90 days or so. We've already seen quite a number of miles being driven, but with this spike, this just happened over the last week, we've now passed that billion miles driven on FSD. And as he points out, it's going to now you're going to get a billion miles every couple of months and maybe even more than that. So it's really going to go crazy. You may remember that Elon said that a billion miles was what he needed in order to have a robotaxi that would be as good as humans. Well, he's got his billion miles. He's got plenty of compute, and he's got more and more billions of miles coming in. So he's got the data, he's got the compute, he's got the hardware, he's got the cars. Boy, we are ready to go at this point. So anyway, let me stop sharing here. And so we have, after that, we have, you may remember that Elon, yes, okay. Many in our community, the Tesla community, have wondered what kind of impact it will have when FSD is at 100%. And then, I mean, to the point where we can take a nap at the wheel. In fact, Cern Basher and others have produced estimates of the revenues that this will produce, and it's really, really big. And of course, that's just for the Tesla owners. Then if you actually get it out to Ford and other people, then the numbers get even crazy. You got Cathie Wood on the other side of the coin doing very elaborate, I'm sure the best analysis of revenues and profits that are going to come from Robotaxi. And she's talking in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 10 trillion. Oh yeah. I mentioned that in a video the other day. I think that was actually the thumbnail, was 10 trillion in revenues. Now, maybe Tesla doesn't get all of those. Maybe they only get 1 trillion. Well, given that Apple does about $100 billion in profits per year, $1 trillion of profits just from Robotaxi would be, pretty significant. She says that if the Robotaxi happens, that by 2027, Tesla will be worth $2,000 a share, and that would value the company at something like $6 trillion. But if the revenues get to 1 trillion, I think the company will be worth more than 6 trillion. Well, anyway, this is before we say anything about Optimus. As noted by many experts on this channel, the key to Optimus is the software and the training. And if FSD works for cars and can be trained by video and be 100% vision in and action out, it's surely going to work for the humanoids also. Anyway, what happens Monday? I think we see at least a 10% up. We saw about $6 in the after hours. We'll check that in a second. But I think we're going to see, 17, 18 up on Monday. I don't know. It's not, the truth is the stock should go straight to the moon based on Robotaxi, based on the analysis I just did. But my guess is that the word unveil, the use of the word unveil, not quite concrete enough for the street. And I'm not disagreeing with that. I think it would be great if we could get a lot more, I don't want to call it color here, a lot more of a clear-cut description of what unveil means. That would be lovely. Hopefully, maybe it'll happen at the earnings report. Maybe it'll happen in between. Who knows? All right. So here's why I don't like, I'm changing subjects now. And I'm going to tell you, this is why I rarely read The Street. Here's a headline today. Tesla's Cybertrucks are cyber bricking shortly after delivery, reports owners. And then they give exactly 3 examples out of thousands and thousands that have been shipped. 3 examples. I'm sorry. That's why I just don't like these guys. All right. We have Market Watch saying total consumer credit rose 14.1 billion in February, down a little bit from a revised 17.7 billion in the prior month. That would be January. These reports are really, really rearview mirror. So you're talking about February, not March. So this is according to the Federal Reserve. That translates into a 3.4% annual rate, down from a 4.2% rise in January. Economists had only been expecting $12 billion gain. So this was 14 billion instead of 12 billion, according to Wall Street Journal forecast. Credit growth was revised down in January from an initial estimate of 19.5. So you got a little bit of revision down, and then you got a miss on the high side. So overall, it's about what was being expected. According to this report, revolving credit, like credit cards, accelerated at a 10.2% rate in February after a 7.8% gain in January. Non-revolving credit, typically auto and student loans, only rose by 0.9% after a 3% rise the prior month. And this category of credit, it says, is usually less volatile. And of course, it doesn't include mortgage loans. He says the economy sees signs that consumer spending has softened, and it's dragged down by a slump in auto sales. Yes, in auto sales. So yes, Ford and General Motors are saying, oh yeah, we're selling a lot more cars. They're selling them into the dealers, but they're not moving off the dealer lots. So I have to see what's going to happen with that in the next couple of months. Goes on to say, in part because of the slower growth, S&P Global is tracking first quarter GDP growth at 1.5%, down from the 3.4% rate in the final 3 months of last year. And of course, I think right around 5% growth rate in the third quarter of last year. These are going to be the quarters that it's going to be hard to beat this year. So this is why there's still the potential for a recession in third and fourth quarter, but it'd be kind of one of those, well, it's a recession, but we don't even know it. Again, I have called off the recession for this year. There is not going to be a recession for this year. I've made that decision based on those numbers this morning on the jobs report. The market, and by the way, I've had quite a few other people saying exactly the same thing. Can't be a recession when you've got these many folks working. The market took a bit of a dip right after that credit report, or it might have been that Federal Reserve Governor Michelle Bowman, who's always the most hawkish, said Friday that it's possible that interest rates may have to move higher to control inflation rather than the cuts that her fellow officials have indicated are likely and that the market is expecting. Well, the market was in too good a mood to let that slow the things down, so it continued up into the close, though it didn't get back to its highs of the day. The Mag 7, other than Tesla, were all up to date, but Tesla made it into the green in the after hours, at least last time I checked. So how did, I forgot my phone, let me get it here. How did Tesla finish for the day? Well, let's take a look here. We've got Tesla. Of course, it was down 621 during the regular trading, and it was up 628 after hours. So we basically have a break-even day after all of that drama. I'm thinking we're going to see some significant uptick on Monday, but I could be wrong. It could take longer for this to filter through to the rest of the world. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what happened with the rest of the markets. Okay, this is not going to be good. I'm sorry I'm taking so long here. We got bonds. Finishing up the 10-year finishing up 9 basis points today at 4.4. This is not what I like to see. It's indicative that they think inflation is still a problem. It's indicative of that they don't think the Fed is going to cut rates. And if you look inside, we've got the 2-year up 10.9, and we have got the 2-month up 4.4 basis points. So all of that is, of course, pointing in that direction. And of course, the dollar is up because of that. and because of the strong economy. And then you go over to oil, and you've got oil up 14 cents. Brent unchanged for the day. So we're looking at 86 for Texas, almost 87 for Texas Intermediate, 91 now for Brent. People saying it's probably going to 100. Natural gas at $1.78, up just a little bit today. Gold continuing up very strong, $40 again today. Another record week, another record day. 2,349. Copper down a bit. Silver up, though, another 1%. And so those commodities, the metals continue up in general. We have got Bitcoin down 724 to 68,000. And of course, as you know, the Dow is up 330 or 0.85%. The S&P was up 58 or 1.13%. And the NASDAQ was up 234 or up 1.3%. Well, okay, as promised, I do want to let you know that let me first of all say, Larry and I will be posting our Cathie Wood video. I think you like it. Some of you do, at least. We get huge numbers of folks now watching our analysis of the Cathie Wood analysis. That'll probably be popping about 9:30 tomorrow morning. And I highly recommend you give it a try if you haven't tried it before. And the rest of you probably already know what you want to do about it. And then we'll have Cern Basher, unless there's lots of news that pushes him aside again. I'm going to try to get that Cern Basher video up tomorrow because it is relevant to everything that we just talked about. I think you're going to like it. And then he'll be on again on Sunday morning. And then, of course, the regular news programming on Saturday afternoon, where we cover what's happened between right now and, 3 or 4 o'clock when I do that video tomorrow afternoon. Now, remember I said I give you those 3 cards from the 3 earlier shows today. So those will be up right here. They won't be in order. I've given up trying to figure out how that particular part of the app works, but they're all 3 there. And I highly recommend that you give all 3 a try. I think you'll find that the details of what we just talked about are important. Okay, that's all I got. I am going to say so long until tomorrow morning when Larry and I will bring you the Cathie Wood programming. And it's been great talking to you all day long today.